Welcome to the Spiritualpreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Christian, aka Love Pixel. And in each episode, we sit down with spiritual entrepreneurs sharing their knowledge, wisdom, and tools on their path to authentic success. Let's dive in. What is up, beautiful people? This is Christian from the Successful Spiritualpreneur Podcast. And today I'm very excited to have Donna Bond on the show. She is a former Ritz-Carlton marketing executive that turned a psychology maven, spiritual psychology maven. And she's also the founder of Consciousness Rising and a soul catalyst who facilitates personal transformation for successful women. As a creator of the healing modality higher human integration, Donna's highest mission is soul liberation. So helping you awakening to your whole self through soul-led transformation. Also, just in case you know any conscious women who are seeking deep transformation, inner growth, she has retreats in Costa Rica happening at a regular basis, and you can check that out on her website at www.donnabond.com. It's DONNABOND.com. Welcome to the show, Donna.
Christian, thank you for having me. It's good to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, likewise. Well, let's first start off and, talk a little bit about your personal journey. You spent over 20 years in corporate marketing, including Ritz-Carlton, and before making that shift into the spiritual coaching world, so my question is, what was the specific moment or catalyst that made you realize I'm done with this. I need to leave this place and space and need to start my own thing. And yeah, when was that, if there was such a moment?
It wasn't that straightforward, to be honest with you. I was really, really unhappy in my corporate role. And yeah, I had been doing it for 28 years. And I was so unhappy. I was filled with so much discontent. And I went to go see a psychic. And she said, Donna, your guides are spelling it out for me, spiritual psychology. And I said, what in the hell is spiritual psychology? And I ended up enrolling myself in this master's program that honestly, Christian, I didn't know why I was doing it. I truly did not know why I was doing it. Spirituality, metaphysics, psychology, these were these subjects that were my passion project, my secret thing that I would do on the weekends. Mm-hmm. And going through this program changed me from the inside out. And there's a very long and elaborate story where I was trying to manifest an apple, which is kind of random and miscellaneous. I was about a year into the program, and I was reading that book, E Squared by Pam Grout, 9 do-it-yourself experiments that prove our thoughts create our reality. And her invitation was to make a demand of the universe, which I actually don't recommend, but it has to be about something that you don't care about, something that is really meaningless to you, doesn't matter. And I asked the universe to bring me an apple. And so I actually left the next day to go to this Ritz-Carlton conference. And I was reading a book on the airplane on the way to this conference. And I had a full body realization, my crown chakra opened, and I was just given all of this divine guidance in an instant, knowing that I could no longer keep working for the Ritz-Carlton, that it didn't matter. In that moment, it didn't matter that I didn't have a clue or a plan or an idea about what my next career would look like, but I knew I had to stop doing what I was doing. And I go to this Ritz-Carlton conference and I win the Marketing Achievement Award for the 3rd consecutive year in a row. And I'm walking back to my table with my award in my hand, and I'm feeling even more clear that I'm out of here. I'd been there, done that, got the t-shirt, I'm done here. I sit down where they have just served dessert, and there is this massively beautiful, very elaborate apple decadence that has been presented in front of me with like green apple sorbet and apple confit. And, you know, in typical Ritz-Carlton style, they had provided the menu card. So I think if it weren't for the menu card, I might have missed it. But here was this apple that I had manifested. And in that moment, Christian, I knew that we are all so much more powerful than we can even begin to imagine. We are so much more magnificent than what we have been taught or led to believe, you know? And in that moment, I knew that I was being guided, that I could trust what happened on the airplane, where I had this clear guidance. And from then forward, you know, I was really sort of shown that I would become a spiritual coach. And that was also something that was quite by accident, because when I was in the corporate arena, I, you know, had a big job with a big division. I had 60 people in my division that were ultimately reporting to me. And the idea of sitting heart to heart, one to one person at a time seemed impossible to me. And it also seemed impossible to me that there was any earning potential in it for me. And, you know, I like money and I need to make a lot of money. So that was also a journey of becoming a spiritualpreneur. And what did that look like? But now, what does it look like to be of service, to be of a greater contribution to the whole and to humanity? And that's really like a big missing link, I think, that for me was a big bridge, leaving the time is money framework and moving into an understanding of a service mentality and making a bigger contribution.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. There's so much there. I love that. What a great way to kick off with that story. And I always think it's one way to like hear guidance, like because you need to like be in the space where like, well, I'm ready to like receive or be open to whatever like you want to see, or just maybe you don't want to see anything. Maybe it's just like a random thing that happens, but you have to be open, right? So it's one thing to be open. It's another thing to see it, and then it's another thing to actually like listen to it, right? So it's very interesting how, you know, you were in that space of really, and it's very interesting also how these situations usually happen when we really need to be open, right? It was like this pivotal point in your career, just like, yeah, I'm done with this Ritz-Carlton thing, and you at the same time you were very much open to guidance, to the universe, reading certain books, listening to certain material that puts you in a space of like, I'm ready for a realignment in my life. Like, where is that happening? So I love that you've listened and that you've, you know, done that for yourself and continue to do that, you know, even more so now with all your work. So um, it's an honor to have someone like you spreading the message, right? Especially with such credentials. You know, oftentimes people that are where you were, they're like in too far in to make this big life change. This is not for me. You know, it's like I'd rather, you know, stay in my golden cage in a way. But yeah, I commend you for that.
Thank you. Yeah, it was, it took a lot of courage. Um, and, you know, to your point about seeing the guidance, being open to it, listening, and then actually taking action around it, I'm kind of thick-headed. I'm Italian American, grew up with Italian parents, grandparents on both sides. And so I have needed like poster board sized announcements to hit me in the head sometimes to like wake me up and get my attention. And that's actually sort of a request that I ask of my guides and my spirit team and the universe, is like, please show me in a way that I cannot miss. You know what I mean? So I just share this with your listeners because we have to ask for what we want and what we need. And on a regular basis, I'm 10 years into my spiritual career here. And I've died 1,000 deaths, Christian, and I'm going to probably die 1,000 more because we're on this perpetual path of evolution and this perpetual path of becoming. And, I know I'm in like my next iteration of the next path that I'm going to be on. And so I keep asking, like, show me in a way that is unmistakable for me. And that apple dessert was unmistakable.
Beautiful. And so, in your current business as a spiritual coach, what products and services do you offer? Like, I always like to give people kind of like a little bit of like behind the scenes look of, because ultimately the vision with this podcast is to get other people inspired and motivated to start their own business, their own vision, like live your own dharma, right? Because there's so many people who still think they need to work for someone else to make money, whereas everyone can work for themselves, obviously serving others, and enjoy that maybe more. So the question, what kind of like products and services do you offer currently in your business?
Yeah. So I offer private coaching journeys. I offer online classes. Some of those classes I teach live. Some of them are pre-recorded. You can go to my website and find your way to my online classes. And there's all sorts of different opportunities, different interests for people. I have a monthly membership where I come together live with my community. And that is very spirit directed. I just sort of listen to what it is the community needs. And the community benefits from me doing my own work. And I never stop doing my own work. So they get to be the recipients of all of the things that I'm teaching myself. And then I also facilitate retreats and offer retreats. So those are sort of the big categories of what I do. But I want to just speak a little bit about coaching. And there's coaching and there's the business of coaching. And these are two very important distinctions that I think sometimes people who fall into the spiritual spaces overlook that there's coaching and the business of coaching. And so I just want to give a shout out to the business model called The Prosperous Coach by Steve Chandler and Rich Litvin. And these two coaches, Steve Chandler was really known as the godfather of coaching. And that business model is all about conversation. And I know in today's day and time, everybody wants to be online and we want to have all these digital spaces. And I spent the last year building out my digital spaces. And I took my eye off of having one-to-one conversations. And the truth is, my business has suffered from it. And I'm in a place right now, in full transparency, where I'm going back to the beginning and back to complementary coaching conversations, because that is how, we can talk about coaching till the cows come home, but when people sit with me and have an experience with me and understand the way that my gifts work through me, from my soul talking to your soul, that's why I call myself a soul catalyst, magic happens. And that has been such a successful model. And that is really how I built my business, how I built my community. And, 10 years in, I would go back to that and point to that again and say, if you really want to make money, you have to learn how to enroll clients, and you have to learn how to have these open-hearted conversations where you have no attachment.
Yeah, I agree. It's all about that connection that sometimes is just tricky to convey when it's a group thing, right? Because you're so much deeper with people on one level when you just are with them, when you hear their thoughts, when you listen to them. It's just harder to do that in a group or online, setting. So yeah, one-on-one definitely, is the deeper way, right? Especially for us, spiritual entrepreneurs. Like, we have so many layers and gifts that come when we talk about anything specific, right? And it's obviously much more deeper if we can talk about something specific about a person, right? And we can like draw all our, you know knowledge and wisdom just for that, not for like, oh, I'm talking to 10 people and like, yeah, today this is kind of like this thing we're trying to heal, and everybody's like, so yeah, I totally get that. So that's beautiful that you're finding your way back to that. I think the only thing valuable I might add is, can you find a way to make that wider accessible somehow, right? I think social media
For
is kind
sure.
of that. It's like a 10% slice, or a 1% slice maybe, of what you can offer and give people, right? And for people to being able to understand your essence from social media, and then being curious and reaching out, is that that transition, I think, is the trickiest part to master. Like, I've seen that with my wife. She's a teacher about A Course in Miracles, which you might know. It's kind of like this
Very
blue book
well.
that teaches
It's behind
about
me.
non-duality. Beautiful. Yeah, so she runs two very big Instagram accounts, one in English, one in Spanish, because she's bilingual. And I mean, she's been doing that for 8 years. Never really, made a lot of money. She doesn't have that business background. She was an actor before, and this is like, this is a different skill set, right? So once I, came into her life, I helped a little bit more like structure things differently, and how things kind of need to be presented and worked from, to get an audience that is very, I would say, uninterested on social media, because they see 1,000 things of something spiritual every day, to like, I'm gonna follow this account, and from I follow this account to I actually want to know more, and then from want to know more, I'm actually gonna book a trial session. Like, this is kind of like the ladder, or the funnel, whatever you want to call it. Um, that is, yeah, just something to be, uh, yeah, played with, mastered with, however you want to call it. But it's been a long journey for her too, so I get that. And
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, I really appreciate what you're sharing, and that's so accurate. And yeah, it's interesting. What happens with me is I have so much power, like so much energy comes through me. And, sometimes I see myself online on social media and I'm like, oh, like tone it down a little bit. And it's hard for me. Like, and if I feel like I'm controlling myself or trying to tone it down, then I'm not really in my full authentic expression. So,
hmm
it makes me question if, like, is the online space really for me, or do I need to be standing on a stage somewhere in a big room because I have all of this energy and this like aliveness that comes through me, this, you know, Shakti.
hmm Yeah, I think my wife too. Like, she's Cuban. She's a very like fiery, energetic type person. Um, it's just taken years for her to be able to give, because at the end of the day, everything is a permission slip, right? Like, it has taken years for her to give herself the permission slip to really like be more of herself online, because there's like this layer between the technology and the real life. Like, but yeah, the more she's able to do that, the better it works. Like not just in terms of engagement, but also for herself. Like, oh, I can be myself. I can be weird, and strong or whatever it is. It's quiet, depending on the context. But yeah, I think it's just like giving it more time and keep showing up. Yeah, beautiful. Well, let's. I would like to get to know a little bit more about your methodology, especially the high human integration that you have trademarked. So I'd really like to know. Can you break that down for us, the high human integration methodology, and then how is it different from traditional, personal development or other coaching approaches?
Yeah. So, higher human integration is the full embodiment of both our higher self and our human self. And, at face value, we don't really think about that, like that there's these unique expressions between our human self and our higher self. And really, what we're talking about is the framework of the ego. And the ego is our operating system and the learned self conditioned patterns that have been taught to us, right? This is why we can't lose our professional self when we're in front of the camera, because we've been conditioned to sort of bring that polished persona. So, higher human integration is a deep dive into the 4 different levels of our consciousness so that we can begin to really understand at the deepest level, mentally, emotionally, physically, and then spiritually, how we are interpreting, understanding, and relating to life. And excuse me, as I've understood more clearly about the patterns that are sort of layered in my own mental framework that have a direct connection to my emotional body and how I feel about things, if I start thinking I'm no good, I'm not enough, my programs suck, if I start thinking those thoughts, which might be messages that I picked up from childhood, from my school environment as a teenager, from messaging that I took in as a young adult, these things get impressed upon us and they become habitual. They become the lens that we see life through. And when I have thoughts like that continue on a regular basis, those are going to lead to feelings of disparagement, depression, unhappiness, right? There's like a whole slew of what we would maybe say unfavorable emotions or negative emotions that then are interfering with the quality of the life that I'm able to experience. So in higher human integration, we take a very close look at what is going on in each of these levels of our consciousness. And spiritual psychology, which was innovated and pioneered through Doctors Ron and Mary Holnick at the University of Santa Monica, which is where I earned my master's degree in spiritual psychology with an emphasis in consciousness, health, and healing. Spiritual psychology teaches us that everything that's happening, and I'm from Connecticut originally, so I like to say the good, the bad, the ugly, and the super wicked ugly. Like no matter what is happening in our life, all of it is giving us an opportunity to grow and learn and evolve. And this is actually segmented into this next body of work that I'm delivering around understanding our sacred soul plan, which is really a deeper understanding of our spiritual curriculum. Why did I take embodiment? And what am I doing here? Right? Like, what are the real reasons that I'm in this life? And Earth is a school. So the more I can understand my essence as this pure, purposeful, I even want to say the word pristine this morning. You know, we're out in the physical world and we're chasing all of these things in the material world to try to find joy and try to find aliveness and vitality and upliftment. But those qualities are what make up our true nature and our real essence. And what happens is our true nature, our real essence, gets covered up. This is a good way to think about it metaphorically. It gets covered up by all of this conditioning and programming that prevents us from the realization of the truth. And when we can really have an actual experience of our authentic essence, we get all of the derivatives of that. We automatically experience the enthusiasm and the inspiration and the upliftment and the joy and the elation and the compassion and the understanding and all of the qualities that would really make us better humans, more kind, more yielding, more compassionate. And so this is why I say higher human integration, because we're really removing the blocks. And this is, you know, the Course in Miracles on the first page. It says, the Course does not seek to teach the meaning of love, for that is impossible. But what we seek to do is remove the blocks to the awareness of love's presence. And if there's a goal, if you will, in my work, you know, the overarching intention is just that. And so I really support people in understanding their framework in such a way that they're also getting a deeper sense of their own authentic power and their own authentic magnificence, which gives them the courage and the inner esteem that they need to make some of these bigger choices in life. Like, I'm going to go off and start my own, you know, entrepreneurship, or I'm going to get a master's degree in spiritual psychology, or whatever it is. So I know I'm a long rambler. I can't help it.
No, this is good. You know, I think it really helps people to dive deep and, you know, be with it, you know, and this is what you know, this is your genius, right? This is your methodology. So, yeah.
So that's what it is in a nutshell. And I have a course called Empower the Authentic You. And I taught it live for many years, but now it's automated in such a way that people can take themselves through this program at their own pace, you know, with me as their guide. And there's all sorts of experiential activities throughout that course. And, you know, this is something that I learned from Steve Chandler, that there's a big difference between information and transformation. And we can all take in a lot of information. And, you know, if I turn my camera around, you would see 1,000 books on my wall, because I, you know, eat this stuff for breakfast and I love it and can't get enough of it. But who cares, right? If it's all up in my head, then it's not embodied in my life and in my experience in a way that I truly understand it at the deepest level. And so to experience transformation will require us to take action, because when we take action and we're willing to engage with life, then life can give us feedback. Life
Mm.
can shape us and correct us and teach us in ways that we're now engaging all levels of our consciousness, mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually, in that whole body, whole person understanding of whatever it is. So, like, we can't just
Mm.
take the class and show up and watch the thing. We got to do the activity, you know? And this is in the coaching experience that I guide people through. You know, we do the work. We do the deep dive. We talk to our shadows and excavate, you know, the parts and the pieces of the personality, that not only the parts that we don't like, but the parts that we don't want to look at.
Yeah, very true. Beautiful. I love that. And you frequently mentioned, you what's called like original wisdom or soul wisdom as kind of like the higher intelligence, or what we all are connected to in a way. So how do you think like listeners can distinguish between their original wisdom and their conditioned beliefs when making, decisions for business or their personal life? Like how can we get to know the difference between the two?
I love your question, Christian. You know, the short answer is our original wisdom is always connected to loving. It's always connected. There's a thread of love. There's that thread of inclusion, the thread of compassion. There's these higher human qualities. And our higher self always has our best interest in mind. And it also has everybody else's best interest in mind, you know? So I think in every moment, everything that we're choosing leads to something that's either driven by fear or something that is driven by love. And when we're making decisions that are driven by fear, that is our operating system and our ego working through its MO, which is safety, security, comfort, and control.
Mm.
And those are the four key drivers that the ego is always vying for protection around, those four key elements: safety, security, comfort, and control. One of the other very important parts to this, and this is not our culture or our society or how any of us have been brought up, and it's not how any of us live, but we absolutely must slow down. And we absolutely must bring our attention inward. And when we can quiet our minds enough to get the ego to relax, this higher wisdom naturally bubbles up and comes forward. But, you know, everybody wants it now, and they're going and they're doing and they're driving and they're pushing and they need it now. And so how come my intuition isn't working? Well, maybe that's why.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one thing too. I love tea.
Tea? I'm putting on my air
Yeah.
conditioning. I'm so sorry.
I was like, I thought she's pointing to something, but no, you're pointing. Okay, good. Um, yeah, I love tea because it brings that into my life. It's like
Mm.
slowing down, making it a ritual. Just like because life is so busy in the US, you're just like constantly running and like, oh, gotta make the next dollar. Like, funny country. Um, and it's like, yeah, no wonder they don't have capacity, they don't have space. Like even like other parents, like I text people, hey, do you want to do a play date? It's like, maybe the weekend, it's like, what's happening after school from 5 to 8? Nothing. Netflix probably, like, let's hang out. It's like people just don't have the capacity to even like spend time or, it's very interesting. The culture here that leaves very little space for tuning in, slowing down, getting into alignment, right?
Yes.
So, fascinating culture here in America. I just
Yeah.
came back also from a month-long trip in Japan. You know, it's a different. Yeah, they work a lot too, but after work they are out. They're out in bars and drink. Not that everyone needs to drink, but like have fun and live a life. Here it's tough. People are. There's a lot of pressure in this country. Very interesting. So
Yes.
I think
Yeah.
if you're able to make space a priority, it doesn't have to be much, just like 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes at night. That's all it is, and that's fine. But like even that, people don't get to, you know?
Yes.
So,
And, so many of the corporate executives that I coach, they're like, don't talk to me about meditation. Nobody's got time for that. And by the time you complete a journey with me, chances are you have some sort of a practice because I am incredibly devoted to my practice, which I was tricked into a meditation practice early on back in 2014. When my whole journey began, I had a frozen shoulder. And the only way that I could get out of pain was to be still. And so I went to the Chopra Center in Carlsbad, California, and I took this class called Rest and Restore. And it was there I learned about transcendental meditation and began my journey into meditation. And, my husband will tell you, like, nothing happens in this house until I have my practice, until I am with the universe. Actually, you can see behind me, I built myself a temple here in Costa Rica because I am so serious about my
beautiful.
practice. And, uh, the truth is, I could not do this work without my practice because my practice is how I sort of plug in and tune in and bring
Mm,
in everything that
yeah,
wants to be expressed through me. So, yeah, I love that we're like talking about this. And um,
yeah,
our
I think it's
original
very.
wisdom, sorry.
Yeah, I think it's very. I mean, you could do it without it, right? But not for long, because at some point you need to recharge, you need to purify, you need to like take a step back, right? So it's just again having that practice, having a ritual, having a discipline of stepping back, disattachment, recharging, letting the mud settle, so to say, is very. It's crucial, especially in the field of spiritual work. Um, yeah, it's just a sign that what you do is you really do it, and there's substance behind it, and it's authentic. So
I
yeah,
love that you
and
spoke about the
especially.
tea because you just came back from Japan. I can imagine there's a lot of tea going on there. I'm
Mhm.
a guide for the Gene Keys. And so I'm a big fan of Richard Rudd, and he loves tea. And he wrote a book called The Art of Contemplation.
Mm.
And it's exactly about this. And the Gene Keys has a great app, actually, that has an alarm on it to remind us to pause throughout the day. And so that is a tool that I use to support myself through my busy workday is, I get the little buzz on my phone and I will push myself away from my keyboard and what I'm doing and I just close my eyes and take some breaths. And it's amazing just 2 minutes, what 2 minutes how that can reset our nervous system, how that can bring us back into our heart, how that can open the channels to that higher
Yeah.
wisdom and that guidance to just drop in when I'm not working so damn hard with my little mind who thinks it knows it all, because it doesn't.
Yeah, so true. I love that. Yeah, I think people are getting more and more into that, It's just, I feel ultimately, even like, what's happening in the Middle East right now, it's like people are kind of like just over it. Like, stop being children. You know what I mean? It's like I feel like a lot of people on the with like us that are just like the little people, right? Um, we're over it. I feel like collectively we've take a step beyond that. Like nobody's even talking about it. It's just like the media is trying to push it so hard. You meet neighbors. It's not even. Eh, it's like boring. You know. It's very interesting.
You know what I'm doing this afternoon? I'm done today at about noon, and I'm going to make a great big spaghetti bolognese. And I'm having my neighbors over, and I've got some friends in from out of town. And we're going to like have a party all afternoon,
I
open up
know.
some Sangiovese, and we're going to break bread and laugh and tell
Yeah,
stories.
I know. So nice. Yeah, I think that's where it's at. You're onto something there in Costa Rica. Which is also a very special place. I mean, just the fact that you live there, a lot of karma, a lot of busyness, a lot of legal structures that fall away a little bit. When you live in a different country. Um, so it's wonderful. I think it contributes very much to your work and to your being. So wonderful. I'm right now here with wife and child, so I'm holding the fort here in a different way, but it's beautiful too. So we live in a very quiet area, very nice, and very blessed. We're very blessed. So yeah, we're coming towards the end of our episode, and I would love for you to maybe share any last like tidbits, or what do you, if there's one thing that the audience could take away from today's conversation, or something outside of this conversation, um, what would that be? What's something that comes up?
Yeah, Christian, I like feel this so powerfully coming through me as a message for everyone. Don't give up. Don't give up. Right now, things are very difficult on this planet. Things are very difficult in America. And it doesn't matter who you are or what you're doing. And there's a lot of distracting and downward energy spirals that it's easy to be consumed by. And if you feel yourself in that downward spiral and in that desperation, go outside, take your shoes off, put your feet on the earth, go wrap your arms around a tree, breathe deeply, get out of your head, get into your body, and in your cellular tissue, you'll remember that you are a spiritual being having this epic human adventure. And we can all lighten up a little bit and not take it so seriously. And when we do that, we change our energetics and we change our physiology. And when we change that by allowing ourselves to be lighter and to go higher, then we see the world from a different perspective. We see our life with a different angle. And it's not as overbearing and consuming as when we're buried under the shit, right? So don't give up.
Hmm.
I'm just hearing this really clearly. I've never said this before on anybody's show ever. Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for blessing us and the listeners with your wisdom, your heart, your knowledge. It's always an honor to have someone on that, carries such depth and wisdom and shares it with us. And for us, it's an honor to, share the message and get it out to the world to be a beacon of light for anyone else that, needs it.
Well, Christian, I just want to say thank you to you and the work that you're doing in the world and the way in which you are helping to elevate so many people and hearts who have a calling to really be of greater service in the world. So I just give you a deep bow and want to acknowledge all that you're doing to support so many people in really fulfilling their soul's mission.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been my honor to be here with you today and, light ahead.
Thank you so much. And one day I'll come by and meditate in your temple.
All right. The door's open.
If you ever see a stranger in the backyard that's meditating in a temple, it'll be me. Probably was something. Thank you so much.
Thank you.